All right, we are live. I got, let me see if I can bring in Monsieur 𝗚𝗶𝘀𝗀 and do a little rat action here. What's going on, Daniel?
Hey man, how good? Can you guys hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just
And
barely.
every time I'm in here, like something goes wrong with my audio, right? So hopefully this time it's gonna work out.
That's how it goes sometimes, right? Let me see if I can square away this so that you're not Nick at 𝗚𝗚𝗀𝘁𝗀𝗀, but that you're Daniel at 𝗚𝗵𝘁.
What's up, folks?
What's up? Okay, cool. We'll see who else pops in. I think Joey said he was going to be here, so that's good. Yeah, sound is okay. I'm using a new mic today, trying something new.
Nice.
What's up, dog? So we had quite a week.
Oh man, yes. Today I decided to take like a partial break. That never happens, right? Partial break means talking about DY and 𝗚𝗏𝗀𝗀 by the pool.
Yeah. It's like talking about work somewhere else.
Yeah, basically. I mean, yeah, it's work. Sometimes it doesn't feel like work, but yeah, it's definitely work. What a week, huh?
Oh, it's,
For those who are not in New York this week, there was like a lot happening. It was very cool. Hey,
yeah.
Joey.
Joey, what's
Good
up, man?
morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Let me see if I can put you as Joey.
There's two of us now.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for the mug,
What,
Sarah.
Okay, there we go. That should be squared away. All
I need
right,
one
I
of
was
those.
saying my sound is a little low. I can probably crank it up here. I don't know if that helps or if I need to drive that slightly more there. But in any event, yeah, and keep hitting me if the sound sucks.
It's good
Yeah.
for me.
Okay.
Testing on my end. You hearing
Yep.
me okay?
Yep. Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Yeah.
We all got to this one a little bit late, so bear with us. I'll see if I can crank it up even more. I'm getting more.
It's the weekend. This is new
Yeah, it's something
territory.
new. Something new for sure. Cool. All right. So Helium House, crazy at the end of the big announcement with T-Mobile. That was a big deal. People seem pretty excited about that. Yeah. Let's go to. I think people got a chance to watch the stream, but Daniel, what was your favorite part of let's say the week, whether it was House or something else?
I mean, I guess we can look at two ways, right? Personally, I just had a great time like meeting everyone. It feels like going back to a high school reunion and just catching up with friends, people that you talk every day.
Yeah.
Some new people that you only spoke on like on Discord before, knowing that their faces and they're real.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
it's really cool to see like this DY ecosystem, like how everybody's trying to get together. It's just like good vibes everywhere. And besides all the announcements, right? The T-Mobile, the Deutsche Telekom thing that everyone was been like expecting to. It was like, okay, now it got real. Let's go back and we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
yeah,
And I think that's a great piece is to start like now we have work to do. Now there's something to kind of work on and get after. But that wasn't the last announcement. So that's the beginning.
that's
how it
the
starts.
beginning.
Joey, what were you psyched on?
I mean, similar to the Austin event, it's just so. This kind of mirrors what Daniel was saying. It's incredible seeing all these people in person. There's this really weird, like, uh, disconnect of like seeing like AP and a couple of folks that I've like Neil I've never seen in person before,
Yeah.
but I just feel like I already know them because we've spent so much time on calls and see them in all these different settings. So you see them in person, it's like, oh hey, like
It's
it's
not
not
oh
a big
hey, it's
deal.
like oh hey,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
yeah. Neil's like, yeah, he's like, that's a tall guy.
Turns out Neil
Um,
is pretty big.
yeah. Um, but yeah, it's awesome seeing all these people. And then, of course, like the announcements, 5G is like a huge thing. But there's all sorts of cool stuff going on with the LoRaWAN side. Like the whole rest of the event was people doing really cool stuff with the network. I did that panel with 𝗪𝗏𝘁, and those guys are like out there doing something like really similar to what I was doing in the early days of just like talking to your local bakery, like coffee shop, like what problems can I solve for you? And then just fucking go do it. Sorry, I broke your rule.
Yeah.
Um, And then it's like
You beat me to it. Good work.
I know I gotta write one of those now.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but it's like the barrier to entry is so low on this stuff. Like you're gonna have fun learning it. Like you're gonna solve problems for people. They're gonna be super stoked, and then it just opens doors for like all sorts of awesome stuff. So I got so excited to be able to like tell a story that was kind of really personal to me through somebody else because I'm like starting to see this like happen in a bunch of other places.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was certainly an interesting week. We had Helium House on, I think it was Tuesday. We had the tipping thing on Wednesday, and then I went around and got to meet a couple more people and see a couple more folks on Thursday. It was a packed week. One thing, let's see. I'll start with going through like, hey, thanks to everyone for showing up. I always forget to just recognize people. Get so like into what's going on, but good to see all the kind of same names. And it's like classic. This is kind of what happens is that I know you guys all by your YouTube handles or Discord handles. So there's Algernon Sour Gravy. Like I see you all the time. I have no idea what you look like. Val, I've seen you before. 619, always good to see you. BFG, psyched to have you on. BFG lost his glasses in a New York cab, if I remember right. And that's why he's not on, because he can't see much. But he's got some new ones coming in, so we'll see him on the next State of the Network, which would be cool. Sierra, good to see you, hacking this and that. Super psyched. Fred Garner, yeah. A lot of it's kind of cool to start having this thing that we're building together, that we connect once a week and kind of share the news that's going on. Yeah, very cool thing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
also getting to know new projects, right? Like I think initially the big ones, right? That started was like Pollen and Helium.
Yep.
Doing like the 5G and then LoRa, and then there's like Dimo guys, like Dimo.
Yeah.
It's sponsored by Dimo.
Yeah, that's right.
We learned
really
about
cool
React Network. Like
React
that was a cool
Network,
one.
spending some time. That is like React is a company. I think, what is the website? React.network maybe?
Might be React.net or might be anodenet.io or something.
Well,
but yeah.
That was their old name, I think.
Was Anode?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's how
I know the name moved to React. It's like a solar panel. You sell energy to the grid on a decentralized way. I think it's really interesting, especially I would say for you guys in California, where they have like a massive grid problem right now. So that's going to be really interesting. There was like a talk with the guys from Hexagon Wireless.
I'll just play. It's reactnetwork.io.
Okay. Cool. Maybe 619 drops that into the chat so everybody can see that, and I'll put it in the description. Yeah, that was super cool. They presented to the Gristle crew last week, and I had talked to them a couple weeks ago, maybe a little bit more, and just a super sharp group of folks who are doing this, basically this virtual power plant thing, aggregating all of this stuff that all of us may or may not have. So whether you have solar panels or batteries or an HVAC system that you can turn off, is they're starting to turn that into what Mike Zajko at Lattice Funds is calling a tippin', which I think is a great. So it's a more mature name than blockchain and meatspace. So it's fun to see that part of the kind of space coming. But
I mean, there are so many different names. I'm not a big fan of tipping name.
No.
And at the end of the day, whatever works it, right? Like, doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, I think blockchain and meatspace is sexier, but if you're talking to investors and they're definitely a part of the ecosystem, they want something that's not quite as racy.
I still like yours. I keep having to repeat in my head what tippin means, but like blockchain meatspace is just like immediate understanding.
It's easy, yeah. Yeah, and maybe that's how it'll end up. But that was really cool to see, to be in that room. And it hit me as I was walking in there and making the notes for the panel that this is a pretty special place where this whole thing is really, it's the first physical locus of all of these different projects coming together. So you got Dimo, you got Pollen, you got Helium, you got React. The GeoNet guys couldn't make it, but they'll be at the next one. But all of these different networks that are doing this kind of thing, and seeing that Helium is leading the charge, it was just a super cool space.
Yeah, it's super early, right? You can't forget that. And the thing, like, I don't like to use the word disrupt, but it's something that the infrastructure is something really hard to build and to change. Like there's a lot of like old companies that have been around for centuries.
Yep.
And slowly we're going to crack that. It takes time, takes a lot of work. and the fact that everybody's helping each other, trying to get to this space and make a difference, it's super exciting. And it's too early. Like the tipping could be the first one. This thing could be happening every year, like around the Helium house. It's it's really hard to predict the future in a
Yeah.
way that we're still so early. Like I wouldn't when we started with 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏, there was only Helium and LoRa. It was really hard to think about like all the other projects, and then okay, there's so many cool things happening. I'm really excited to see in a year from now where we're gonna be, and imagine like in 5-10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I just got my Dimo order. It was here when I got back yesterday, and I put it on the car. You know, the little Dimo miner, and it's just we're going to start plugging more and more of these things into our lives and pulling the information out and kind of having both access to it and the ability to resell it. And it's a pretty magnificent time to be alive. So
Extra plug on Dimo. Did you see the ARC device that they were showing off at
I didn't
Helium
know.
House?
No. What did I miss?
Yeah. So it's a little USB dongle that can go into the 𝗚𝗏𝗶𝘀𝗁, and it's going to basically be a proof of what do they call it? Proof of position, proof of movement,
Or
something like
location,
that.
location.
Okay. Very cool.
They had a different term for it, but it's basically a little bit of the work that I've been doing with them to sort of get them contributing to the Mappers project. So it'll be a way for them to, hey, Paul, get a better understanding of that their people are actually moving around in the world, and then we'll get a better understanding of the Helium network through that as well. So pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we got Paul just came on. Let me get your name tag correct, Paul. You were doing your own thing you were in France. You'd made a presentation that I saw while we were all doing our stuff in New York. You were crushing it somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm just back from the Sing conference, so I was not in New York,
No.
but in Amsterdam that week.
Yeah. And then, I mean, let's see. There was something that I wanted to make sure we addressed here on State of the Network, and that was I ran into a lot of people who were really unsure about where kind of Helium is and where it's going. And rather than ignore that, I want to make sure that we address that because I feel like from my privileged standpoint, as far as talking to a ton of people and being in the network and being connected to a lot of folks, we are just at the beginning of a really radical thing. And it's not going to be something that we go from the beginning to the end by the end of the month or even by the end of the year or maybe even by the end of the decade. But this is the beginning of an amazingly important thing. And I was talking to folks at Helium House who were thinking about bringing in 100,000 IoT devices over onto the Helium network, right? So that hasn't happened yet. And Paul, you might be like, hey, whoa, that's a pretty big move. Just from a technical standpoint, but like the stuff that is happening now that is kind of under the radar is pretty exciting as far as what's to come. So I want to make sure we hit that. Paul, have you looked at the chirp stack stuff anymore? Because we've been talking a little bit about this. Yeah.
I take a look at ChipStack. I have many questions of how we can migrate from a console, which is really 21st century stuff, to ChipStack. That is really really old school stuff. So I'm a bit afraid, but what I feel is that ChipStack is not for tomorrow, and maybe if you use a ChipStack to manage your own fleet, and if you have a sensor of 1,000 or 100,000 temperature sensor, for example, and you want to manage a service with this, ChipStack will be really good. So there's no problem for this use case. Where it starts to be complex, it's for public console, like the Helium IoT.eu console I manage, or the Helium console, the console.helium.com, because it's multi-tenant, and in my point of view, ChipStack has not been. It's not really ready for multi-tenant approach and so on. So I think that as Helium will have to make it working for console.helium.com at first. They might fix this question. And regarding the development in front of them, I don't think it's going to be for the end of the year. That's my own opinion, but I would be surprised of the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, all this stuff takes more time than the rest of us are used to with kind of Amazon having things here the next day. Is that we're building up this giant new network, and yeah, that's the deal. Let's see. In the chat, I saw 𝗱𝗏𝗻𝗁. Thanks for the super chat, dog. Is asking when Starlink, and maybe that is like a facetious or a funny ask, but I don't know who I was talking to. But it's $1 million to put a satellite into space, which seems like a lot of money, but in the satellite world,
Nope.
that's not a lot of money.
It's less.
It's less, yeah. So I don't, it's not going to be Starlink. Maybe it is. I don't know. But if I'm going to put a guess out there, I will bet $1 that we see a satellite LoRa kind of hotspot up in space in the next year. So I'm willing to lose $1 and I'm willing to win $1. But I think we're going to see stuff happening.
You already lost it. You already lost it because I sent a message on 𝗓𝗏𝗀𝗁 Space yesterday at noon, and
Okay.
and I received it. I have on my top windows here. I have a sensor I can show you if you want,
Okay.
which is a 𝗓𝗏𝗀𝗁 Space sensor, so satellite sensor communicating with the LoRaWAN satellite. So
And
I'll
not to
send
get
you my account to get the $1 million.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'll send it to you with
I want to
mobile.
play with that.
And I'm seeing Keenan in the chat talking about CubeSat. Maybe that was the thing. Maybe it was Keenan I was talking to. But all of this stuff that we're kind of thinking is like, oh, that's total pie in the sky. You just watched it happen. Like, I'm thinking it's going to happen in the next year, and Paul did it yesterday. Like this is, we're in a pretty amazing time to be a part of this network. Go ahead, Joey. If you go, good.
Yeah. Well, satellite, and I mean, to go further on 𝗓𝗏𝗀𝗁 Space, and there is also a Telsat which is going to do LoRaWAN on satellite. What is interesting with 𝗓𝗏𝗀𝗁 Space is that 𝗓𝗏𝗀𝗁 Space is working with the Sync network. So basically, it's not a separate network. It's in the Sync network infrastructure. So what I mean, it could be also in Helium. So it's no big issue. In fact, it's a roaming question. So Helium could get benefits of satellite even if Nova Labs do not launch any satellite. In fact, just having a roaming agreement with Eutelsat or with Lacuna is good enough to get this.
Yeah, no, it's rad to see how fast this stuff is going. Daniel, I want to make sure that I called out. You stood up at Tippin and gave a short presentation. I just want to say you're a really good public speaker. It's super nice to have folks like you out there spreading the word so that it comes across in a really understandable way. It's cool to see that.
Thank you very much. I was quite nervous and quite tired. I think, and no voice because I spoke from 9 to 9 pretty much the other day, right?
Yeah. Oh, you still did
yeah,
well.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Very, very cool to see that. Let's see, Joey, you and I have been talking about something that we think we're going to kind of push out there, which I'm not sure if that is ready to go totally public, but it's in line with this idea of what Scott had said, Scott Siegel at Helium Foundation, is that Helium Foundation is going to kind of double down on LoRa. Is that with all the recent hype about 5G, I've seen a lot of kind of sentiment, hey, has Helium, has Nova forgotten LoRa? And I'll tell you from the conversations I've had, no. No, there's going to be significant effort put into not only US LoRa, but LoRa all over the world, and making sure that kind of we, the community, help each other to deploy these things and drive demand, because that is the one thing that we don't have yet, and that people want to see in order to make sure they think it's successful, is to see demand. So I think over the next year, you're also going to see some pretty cool projects coming out driving demand.
Yeah. I'm putting together like a whole product roadmap. We're going to do a ton of hiring. Like Scott's just like tear the Band-Aid off. Let's make this like happen. We're really excited about the Oracle-based infrastructure stuff. It opens a huge opportunity for us to change not only the way people connect, but like the economics of it. So it's all very good momentum. Paul's talking about the satellite-based communications, like this type of infrastructure massively simplifies all of that, because like previously you had to have your gateway had this like very special protocol to share packets with the network, and then all of that just gets so much more simple. So we're doing we're scaling up a ton of stuff on the foundation side to make sure that the IoT network like lives up to its full potential. Yeah, it's going to be great.
What can
Yeah,
we can
Yeah.
also, I mean, some learning on the Sync conference. So the Sync industry, which is currently the largest in terms of number of device network in LoRaWAN, they announced 1 million devices this year, basically. And it's not big. And what I mean is TTI has been started in 2016. Okay, so it's about 6 years ago,
Yep.
and the growth is good. I mean, it's 1 million, but what I mean, it's not a big issue. And what they show is that a year before, they were at 300,000. Okay, so basically, you know that in a year many things can happen. And currently, I hear many people say, "Oh, Helium, it's a network for the biggest network that has no traffic." But in fact, you need to, I mean, to get trust and to convince people to start using things. And if the thing industry has made 6 years to reach the 1 million, it's because I mean they are as strange. They were as strange as Helium is, because at the beginning it was an open source, crowdsourced network, so something built like Helium by people creating connectivity, and the industry were not trusting them. But they made a really great work. They made great job to create this business, and now they are trusted and they grow fast. In my point of view, it's the same story. I mean, Helium is about a crypto network, so it means that we have to convince people that it makes sense in all the crypto bullshit.
Yep.
And so it's gonna take 1 year, 2 years, 3 years maybe, but it will arrive because the network works, because it's stable, because people are adopting it, and so on, and then it will scale really fast. To illustrate this, they give some example, and that was interesting for me in that conference, because we did not talk about what's going to be done, but we had talked about what has been done, and that's a big move in the IoT. I mean, 2 or 3 years ago, it was all about what we are going to do, and it never happened. But they talk about what are things that have been done. And one example is public light. Public light was about 80,000 on the 1 million. So you see, it's 8% of the total. And this 80,000 is just two cities. Okay. So just imagine the potential we have. And what this use case says, it says that by connecting this light bulb, they are saving 70 to 80% of energy. So you see in the current energy crisis we are facing,
Yeah.
how much that's important.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And these are street lights, or they're like inside homes street lights?
No, street light, yeah, sorry.
It's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what we talk about, right? Things are gonna take time. You're just gonna keep building and believing in it, and building trust, and it's gonna come.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think Joey might have seen this. I put it in one of these Discord chats I'm in, but I was riding the plane back from New York City yesterday, listening to a podcast about entrepreneurship and Shopify, and a couple stats kind of banged out at me, and I thought, oh, this is as this thing intersects with Helium, we're going to see some really exciting stuff coming down the pipe. So the first one was that in 2021 was the kind of the year of the entrepreneur. In 2021 in the US, we had 5.5 million new businesses start, which is about double the previous 15-year average, and it's the highest since 2004. We also had, for the first time ever, the number of searches for how to start a business outstrip the number of searches for how to get a job. And I think when you look at that and you layer that on top of what's happening in Helium and this idea of you can start your own thing. And right now it's difficult, right? You need the technical expertise of Paul or Joey or Daniel to kind of do your own Helium thing, to run your own server, to do a piece. But what we're going to see, I think, in the next year, maybe the next couple months, is the ability to push a button and maybe a couple buttons and stand up your own server, your own devices, to sell your devices, to provision them, to make everything super easy so that you can kind of follow through on the initial idea that, Yeah, I want to heliumize my town. I want to IoT my town or my region, my state, whatever it is, my country, and we're going to see that. Part of that is exciting in the developed world, but I think the really exciting thing is if we look at the developing world and we look at how phones rolled out over Africa, is they skipped right over throwing down telephone lines and went straight to cell. And we are going to see the same thing with IoT. They're going to skip past all of the kind of bullshit crap that's been thrown out in the past 10 years, 15, 20 years as the US and Europe and kind of developed world has tried to figure this out. And they're going to go straight to use cases. And they're going to end up with stuff that we can't think of here because we don't have the need. And so when you look at this from this kind of high level perspective, this intersection of lots and lots of new businesses starting and IoT getting easier and easier and more brains being applied to how do you use data coming from the world that has never come into the world before and is on a giant scale, we're looking at a kind of a massive shift. And everyone who's watching this, all the folks who are on this show, like you're a part of it. It's about as exciting as it gets. I mean, maybe there are more exciting things, but as far as like a work kind of problem, we're facing a radical change in how the world works.
Just
I'm
to
happy
speak
that
on
we're.
like,
Sorry, let me say one thing. Like, I'm happy that we're recording this because this phrase, this like sentence that Nick did was just like he could be telling to this world organization or like in front of like thousands of people. This is exciting.
Yeah, it's super
Sorry, go ahead.
exciting. What do you got, Joey?
oh, just saying how like everyone's a part of this. So I went to the Solana offices on Thursday, and
Yep.
there was a team there that is doing like tokenized whiskey storage and things like that. Kind of like super neat thing. Like you send it to them and then people can trade it. Like all sorts of. It's like StockX for not
whiskey.
shoes.
Yep.
Yeah. But they were sort of up against this thing, which is like the people that send their stuff in, they want to see temperature trends over time, and they want to see the conditions of the house that the stuff is all like stored in. And so they came to me with that prompt, and I just like, oh, well, to us, that's like the most obvious thing you can do, right? So I pulled up my temperature humidity sensor that's posted up in a forest somewhere, and they lost their shit. They're like, this is exactly what we want. And it was just a matter of me having built that thing out of my own interest of it, just to sort of experiment a little bit. And I could pull it up on a fly, and they knew exactly what they needed to buy. They went and bought a half dozen temperature humidity sensors to go test them. They bought a Bobcat miner off of somebody. Like they are on it, right? Like they are going to be deployed and ready to go by the end of next week. And that just the sort of, again, like the call to anyone that's kind of like thinking about this stuff, just go set something up, sort of throw it in your back pocket. And then when you run into those conversations, you can pull that thing out and just say like, oh, you're trying to, keep track of a moisture sensor in your garden. Like this is what that looks like. It's super easy.
Yeah.
I'm super excited about Seed, of course, and some of the other manufacturers that are making all that stuff a lot easier too.
Right. I mean, if you want to deploy at scale, the problem is that it can be an individual test. On, solving the problem of someone by making a prototype is it's something really cool we can do and so on. But it's not scalable. What I mean is. To be scalable, it has to be a business, and a business means that there is a company and so on. And I think that one thing, I don't know if it's a foundation or who should do that, but the problem, if we want to have Helium grow and be known and be a trust, you need to have some people come and discuss with CEO of these companies and say, okay, we have this great network, it works, and if you need a support, you have more than a community. Eventually, you have an ecosystem with some people supporting in and so on. And and maybe that's sometime a limit of the Web3 is that as there is no specific entity, there's no seller. So you just have haters like for other company that comes to see the CEO of service provider and say, Helium is shit, you should go to my service and so on. But you are not in the place to discuss this. That's I don't know how Helium can solve that, but it's an issue. I think.
Oh no, I'm glad you raised that, because the sort of scenario that I painted is sort of like how you can have those one-off conversations and show how something works. The whole product roadmap that we're putting together is very much centered on the like mass deployment, right? Like we're not going to get to $40 million worth of data credit usage or whatever with 1 or 2 temperature humidity sensors. You need deployments of like 5,000-10,000 of them at a time.
Yep.
So we're having conversations with Seed, with all the others like manufacturers to make sure that like this stuff, like if they want to go sell it, that it needs to work at the onesie twosies, but it also, more importantly, needs to work at the like mass scale. Because if you ship somebody 10,000 temperature humidity sensors and then you tell them they have to scan 10,000 QR codes to onboard them, that is not a fun time.
No, that's not scaling.
Weeks of work. Yeah.
I mean, also, it's not only a question of hardware provider. It's also really a question of service provider. Because if you want to deploy a sensor to a city or a sensor in school or things like this, I mean, you won't have anyone able to configure it to a console and creating a dashboard. So basically, they just want to get the stuff, attach it on a wall, and that's it, and connect the app on your mobile, and you'll go. So that's why it's, in my point of view, it's really service provider that's will really help to scale more than the device maker that are interesting also. But
you're talking specifically around when you say service provider, you're thinking like sensor as a service. Like I could spin up a company that provides temperature humidity services.
Yep.
Yeah. We want to see a lot of that.
No, yeah, it just means the way they are capturing the temperature and the computations they do, we don't care. In fact, you want to master your energy control or your air quality in school or your public light optimization in a city. Basically, you go to a service provider, and this guy will deploy a sensor using Helium, but the customer at the end don't care. They just
want the answer. I think that's what Thomas at Tinkard had said. He's like, hey, these dashboard ideas, they look super sexy, but dashboards are bullshit. Like the people who are doing this stuff, they don't want a dashboard. They want an answer. They want a solution. They want like a text alert when something's happening. Other than that, they don't want to deal with it. Paul and Seed, Hans had asked something that it looks like a couple folks had questions about. What's your opinion on the UID and LNS costs for Helium deployment over 10 devices? And what do you think Helium should do to resolve the issue, or what will you do to resolve the issue?
Yeah, it's a different. I think he's talking about OUI more than UID, and so that's basically the initial cost when you want to create your router. So there is different answer on this. At first, if you want to get started, you don't need to have your own OUI. You can go to a public console. So the console.helium.com is limited to 10 devices, but if you go to console.helium-iot.eu, which I manage, you have no limits. It's not free, but it's really low cost, and you have no limit for this. So that's one part of the solution. Then if you have a mild device, maybe it's better to have your own OUI and your router. And things are going to change with, I think it's related to 𝗚𝗶𝘁.
Yep.
Currently, I mean, when you buy an OUI and your dev address, you buy it forever. So the cost is a bit high for sure, but I mean it's $1,000 to get started. It's not.
It's $900. Come on, don't throw that extra $100 in there. But it's also $900 in HNT, which you can kind of cut that a couple different ways.
Yeah, and but it's going to change. I think it's going to be a yearly basis price soon. So I don't know what's going to be the cost. Maybe Joey, you know more of this, but it means that it will be really less expensive, and you will have to renew, which also means that you can grow and eventually decrease your number of address if your fleet is decreasing over the time.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. So. The sort of economics of this is like the $900 price is on there because we had to make sure that somebody didn't come and buy up all the OUIs because there's a finite supply of them. This is the same like IPv4 challenge. Yeah, you got one of them.
I got number 31. Come get them.
Yeah.
Number 6.
And we've seen people picking them up, but like there's also you have to buy state channels. Like there's all these sort of like hidden little recurring costs. Paul's got an awesome blog that actually details all of this. But state channels go away, so that overhead goes away, which is really great. But I still want to see that barrier to entry come down, because the actual barrier to entry to running this infrastructure also comes down. So you're not running a chain following device anymore. You're just running something that's like passing data through and maybe doing a little bit of processing of it on the way. And so we're running the sort of financial models right now. I can't really quote any price, but it could be as low as $30 a year. It could be as high as like $200 a year. Like, we're not real sure yet. But that entry point for somebody that wants to spin up a business and like just run a bunch of sensors beyond those 10 devices, they're going to have solutions to like go to Paul, who's going to be like a fully managed service.
Yeah.
Or if they're feeling like super DevOps confident, spin all that stuff up on wherever service they want and own that end to end. So it's pretty exciting change that'll hopefully see a lot more like ease to like set up the business, right?
Yeah. Now, and hopefully they grandfather in the currently purchased OUIs for kind of a forever thing, but maybe they won't.
Yeah, we'll make sure people are like whole on that. It was a big spend there, and we want to make sure that people are still building it. These are early adopters, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to like.
You don't want to smash those people. I'm seeing another question I see a ton from Jerome Franklin Ryan about the exciting news about the T-Mobile partnership. Are there plans afoot to have a similar deal in Europe, especially the UK? So what I see all the time is this question about, hey, when is 5G coming to outside the US? And the first part of the answer is that depends on your country's regulations. Like the reason we were able to do it in the US is the US had opened up this band for use by anyone, and that's kind of made it easy. And so if the Euros do that, then ripping, and I'm sure Paul will help out with that at some point, but he's shaking his head no. And then the second part is we're probably going to go straight to, what is it? I think Neil was telling me Wi-Fi 6 on that, and that's where that stuff is going to go. And so it's not going to be CBRS, because CBRS doesn't exist over there. But so like the answer is like, that's not going to happen, but something different and a lot better is probably going to happen.
Yeah, Wi-Fi would be really interesting. I would really think that it would have been better for Helium to start going with Wi-Fi before 5G, because it's global and because it's a real consumer service. What I mean is the agreement with AT&T, it was, or with T-Mobile, sorry, was something mandatory to start using Helium in the USA. I mean, like in France, we had an operator that has been created after the other, and he had a roaming agreement with the historical operator to get deployed. And so we are in the same situation. And it means that basically people using T-Mobile will use T-Mobile for 95% of the communication time for real. And so the jump to this offer in terms of consumer will be a bit limited, because you need to have this, you need to order this, use this, configure this, and so on. So it's quite limited. By the way, for Wi-Fi, what would be really interesting in my point of view is that anyone, whatever subscription it have on its smartphone, can join Helium. Okay, you have a smartphone, or eventually you have IoT using Wi-Fi, you can join this, and that's quite interesting, because if you take a look at children, for example, I don't know in your countries, but in France we are using a low-cost subscription for them, so there is data, but really not a lot. Okay.
Yep.
And if they can access a public Wi-Fi with the right coverage that we can have with Helium, it really means that they're going to use it, and they're going to talk between each other, saying, I can play that game at school or after school because I'm able to connect to this Wi-Fi, which is open, large, and so on. And people are going to talk about this. And so it can grow fast at B2C as user. As a consumer part of the network can become a really large Wi-Fi. And so that's quite interesting, international. When you are going in another country, I was in the US 2 weeks ago, I was roaming on a T-Mobile. It was like Edge. I mean, I get Edge in the US on my smartphone, something I didn't trust. Okay, I just had a dream. It's to find a public Wi-Fi that's working and I could connect on to have a correct access. I did get a good access at my work or at the hotel, but between the two, it was a mess.
Yeah.
So it was really a big place with lots of use case on this, and we have rooftop, we have people knowing how to install outdoor antenna and so on. So it can be really, really huge for Wi-Fi, in my point of view.
Yeah, I'm super excited for that. Just like a quick take here. We were in New York last week trying to work. We went to this Blue Bottle Coffee. I paid like, I don't know, $8 for like a filtered coffee or something like that, and their Wi-Fi sucked. So it at least would be an incentive for places like that to
Yeah.
put like a Wi-Fi that they make a little bit of money from that, and it still help the Helium network instead of just like dot carrying. Because in the end of the day, I think they don't really want people to work there and use their Wi-Fi, even though they buy like an extremely expensive coffee. But yeah, I think I'm very excited about the Wi-Fi 6 thing.
Yeah, no, Wi-Fi is that's a huge deal. I think the funny thing, and I'm curious how the Nova and Helium team thought about this and why they put 5G in front of Wi-Fi. But man, when because I'm sure they have a reason. They're not dumb people. But man, looking at kind of what Wi-Fi or what's coming down the pipe with Wi-Fi, that's a big deal. So let's see, 619 OTA is GeoNet still doing HIP-19 approval, trying to think what they're going to do with all these racks. And that is the GeoNet project to, if you've got a V2, a rack V2 that you're not using or it's not making enough for you, is you can send it into GeoNet, and as long as they approve your location, they will send you out a GeoNet miner to replace it, which is kind of cool. And then they are either going to turn the old rack into a GeoNet, or they will end up, I think that the HIP-22 thing goes through, is they'll make it a GeoNet and a Helium miner. So pretty cool project that they're working on. And one of the first I think we're seeing where crypto projects are thinking forward and thinking about interoperability, is that we start having on one device from a commercial level, not like a geek level where any of you guys can put 9 different things on one piece, but we're going to see these things shipping with 2 different mining options. The other thing that
I saw somebody load, the network streamer. They like loaded that alongside their miner. I think it was a Nebra or something.
Yeah.
But, it's basically
things. Streamer should really be in the miner. I mean, it's really low resources consuming, really easy to deploy, so works really well on a miner. Would be interesting, to add some. And I think there is plenty project like this one. As the miner now are doing quite nothing. We have a lot of power resource to do some interesting.
I mean, just imagine most of the hotspots. There are 2 things, right? They're running Raspberry Pi because they had to run the miner on it. Now that the miner is not there anymore, they're just like sitting idle. And there's a lot of companies they run their software they manage their fleet on Balena. So it would be fairly easy to just like add another container for another project, like Streamer, for example. Streamer is a great one.
Yeah.
And it's not very resource intensive. You can plug a hard drive and have a storage. You can just have a bunch of them.
You have to make everyone open their ports again.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
so one
you can imagine to have also a VPN project to manage this question of port.
I mean, so one of the cool things I think with the state of the network is Neil was talking about this idea kind of when we started doing these things, and you guys have all been talking about this for a while, but it's like you have an idea, you think about it, you kind of figure out how to make it work, and there's so many other things to do that maybe you don't do it right away, and then 6 months later or 4 months later or 8 months later, someone figures it out on a higher level of scale. And so it's really cool to see all this stuff happening so quickly. It's almost like it's like ask and ye shall receive. Is you just got to put it out there, and as long as it's a good idea, someone's going to build it. So yeah, very, very cool stuff. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Gary McGee, they got hundreds of millions for 5G. They would not have for Wi-Fi. I'm not sure who they was. And I'm not sure where the hundreds of millions is, but maybe, I don't know. I think you're talking about why Nova went 5G first. I don't know. Those guys are so super smart. Like I said, I've never talked to them.
I'm quite sure that I mean, 5G is really more bankable. I mean,
It's more
you're
what?
preparing like it's bankable. I mean, you're preparing the next wave, and
Yeah.
so it's on the hype. If you say I want to do Wi-Fi, okay, Wi-Fi. I mean, public Wi-Fi network. It's something that's so 2000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think it has been always a failure in 2000 because the density were not here.
Yep.
And in France, we had different network like this, but they were managed by the ESP box. So indoors, more short antenna with reduced power to not jamming all the neighborhood. So if you change this and put it outside, so you recreate a disruption compared to what has been made, and you can get something in my point of view. But for sure, well, as I say, I mean, if you want to raise money, if you want to have people talking about what you do and so on, it's better to talk about 5G today than Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
But if you want to look at the public adoption, Wi-Fi is really more efficient because everyone have Wi-Fi. Like say 5G is less, it's not exactly the case.
Global. Yeah.
Yeah. And let's see, Jacob Shapiro's got the kind of question I think is really common, but people are sometimes afraid to ask, is if the Wi-Fi is bad, wouldn't Helium 5G be just as bad in that spot? And to me, that just means that I think it's just a misunderstanding of the technology, and we're kind of doing two different things and having two different goals, is the way that I
Well,
see it.
if they're both plugged into like terrible backhaul, it would both be the same. The CBRS gets a little bit more punching power than Wi-Fi does. It can broadcast at higher power,
Yep.
but yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know the basics of that.
And I mean, even this stuff, like this idea of backhaul, which when I first came into Helium, I didn't know what that was. Just like it's a connection to the internet. That's what that means. So we kind of throw these terms around because we all know what it is. And it's, usually I think of backhaul as your cable connection, but it could be a cable modem, or sorry, a wireless modem on a mountain giving you backhaul or connection back to the kind of greater internet.
Yeah, don't run your mobile miner on that backhaul.
No.
Bad times.
No, although I think we're doing something super cool. One of the Gristle crew members used to run some Wisp stuff, and he's sending me out a bunch of 𝗚𝗶𝘀𝗁 bullets and something else. And we're going to put together God, you guys are going to correct me on this, like a point-to-point or maybe point to multi-point section. So we can put a 5G miner, ideally, or 5G hotspot out on a mountain and then rebroadcast the 5G stuff out there and hit it with this 𝗚𝗶𝘀𝗁 piece. And I'm butchering kind of how that works, but it'll be a little bit more of a stunt
No,
than
I
anything else.
follow. You got that.
Yeah.
That'll be cool to see. Hopefully the latency is like reasonable on that, but you should have all the bandwidth you need as long as it's good on the back end.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Tim Laws.
I've got some fun little hardware to share here.
You do?
Yeah.
Huh?
I picked up some stuff. This was before we all took off for New York.
Let's see it.
And Paul might have seen these guys at the Things conference, but this company, Voltaic Systems, does that ring a bell, Paul? They're building some cool stuff. So this is the start of a LoRaWAN node that will have no batteries. So in lieu of a battery, it's got this. This is a super cap, and then there's a chip in here from this company 𝗍𝗶𝘁. So it's a basically super efficient converter of the power, so that it can charge this.
And a cap is a capacitor, is that right?
Yes.
And is a capacitor
sort of
like a battery? It'll help me. I don't understand that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, a capacitor is a battery.
Okay.
And
yeah,
super cap is a big capacitor. It's a really small battery at the end, but as the power efficiency of LoRa is really good. It's good enough for one transmission. So basically, you accumulate energy from the light during for example 15 minutes, and it's enough energy to send a message.
Cool.
So yeah.
So it's like a blast battery. Like it's not storing it forever. It's just like ramping up, blast out. It goes down and ramping up. Very cool.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's actually been more power than I expected coming off. So it says 3.3 volts at 0.4 of an amp. So I've got this little cube cell. I haven't done anything to it, and it runs just fine, sending little packets. the LED blinks and everything, and it hasn't like crapped out as long as it's a little bit in the sun. So I'm excited to write some sort of firmware that puts itself into deep sleep, is a little more power efficient, and I should be able to build. I'm open to recommendations on what I should build with this. I'm thinking like temperature sensor or something, but just something basic and sort of show the proof of concept.
Let's come up with something cool to do a project on, Joey. Let's do something rad together.
Yeah, I want to write this up.
Yeah.
To give you some ideas of potential future, it's not on LoRa, it's on Sigfox, where it's more easy to have ultra low power things. But they made Dimo where the energy was just captured by the Wi-Fi radiation around. So basically, you get the energy from the radio radiation. You accumulate this sometime after 1 day. Okay, but after you're able to deliver one message after accumulating this energy for a day, and that's really interesting because you can use that in a dark place. You just get the energy from the radio wave around. It's quite interesting.
Super cool. Yeah.
If you want to see some wild stuff, go look at the EP site because they do a little bit of that like radio capture stuff too.
And what's the site, nuts. Joey? Is it EP? It can't be EP.com.
Yeah, so EP's like the little, I don't know, green fruit.
Okay.
Am I saying that right? Yeah, EPs.
How do you spell it?
So if you Google PEAS.
Okay, cool. I'll see if someone can dig it up and drop in the chat. Ripping.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'll go back to Tim Law's question. Tim, hopefully we get to see you soon. But in the meantime, why doesn't Nova or Foundation run another protocol on the hotspots? If you guys are saying it's a good idea, why don't they? And I think there's a great example of there are good ideas and then there's implementation, and implementation takes a lot of work. And there's also stuff where like it sounds like a good idea, but if I'm understanding this right, like there's some pretty significant security implications from running a bunch of different things on one box. Maybe I'm missing that, but it's hard because like at a conceptual level, it's like, oh yeah, I just like chuck 9 different things on a miner. But then there's, what do you got?
I would answer differently. I think that it's not a Nova question.
Okay.
Because I mean, Nova is focusing on Helium and 5G, IoT. Well, but not on Streamer, for example. It's a different project, and I don't think they can start taking a decision like this. So, in my point of view, it's more at the hotspot provider, hotspot maker. Like Rack, 𝗚𝗏𝗶𝘀𝘁, to say, okay, we have this computing capability, which is there. We have a big park, and we could add a second container on it. And they are the ones that are managing the firmware and that are responsible to make sure that the different container works correctly with the other. So I don't think it's Nova. Nova can just say it's a good idea, let's go. But it's really to 𝗏𝗀𝗁, Rack, and so on. And in my point of view, it's a differentiator for them. Currently, I mean, there's no difference between the hotspots. By the past, the good hotspot was the one you can get in a short period of time.
Yep.
But now, when people say what is the best, okay, I like this one and this one and this one, but there's no best. So what makes a difference in the future, in my point of view, is the ones that will be able to propose you to do different projects and have a good interface to activate a streamer or storage or I don't know, and start making more tokens with the same hardware.
Cool. So we may actually start having an answer for which hotspot is best, which it's just, like you said, it's like that's the one you can get. Quick shout out to Aaron at 𝗪𝗏 for showing up both at Helium House in Austin and also at Helium House here in New York. A lot of people talk shit about that guy. And he didn't do everything right for sure, but he showed up and was available to anyone to talk to. And as far as I know, everyone that I sent his way to go talk to him came back and said he was, totally reasonable and answered all their questions. So kind of cool to see that those makers are showing up and talking to folks, even when they make giant mistakes and have kind of problems as they're coming up and facing it. Let's see. I want to say, was there anything else? Did 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗁 do something like this? I thought that they announced that you could do some multiple whatever chain mining on theirs. Maybe I missed that. Maybe Ann was telling me about something they're going to do. But there's no hotspot that you guys know of right now that allows you to mine a bunch of different things, or it's all just Helium.
Yeah, I mean that was Controlino, but I think they just drop off the world. What's
Sure.
the word in English? They just died.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
you
yeah,
wa-
we
you
got. I
had
mean,
the
we certainly got some problems with kind of hotspot makers dropping off the map for whatever reason, whether they decide or they're kind of forced out of business by making bad business decisions, or they have something happen to them, which is definitely happened in some cases. So, as a community, ideally, we figure out how to handle that and do a better job. But yeah, we're starting to see like we're getting past the start line, and so we're going to see some of the problems that come with going into a longer term project. Anything else you guys have before we sign off?
I see some people talking about the rack dashboard, right?
Yep.
That we released, I think it was last week, right, or the week before coming to the New York. Uh, we've been working with rack since I think since last year to try to do a lot of cool things. And one thing that we released last year is the direct API access from Hotspot to the rack API, sorry, rack hotspot. So you can, if you go to hotspot, you can click on basically any rack hotspot, and then you load a direct connection between hotspot and the hotspot, and then you can get like information such as temperature. We run every hour like a speed test on your internet to see if there's any problem there. You can see that if the SD card is faulty, and a lot of extra information. And also, if it's your hotspot and you prove ownership of that, there's some other things that I can show. Um, so we started doing that this for Rack, but the idea is that we partner with more makers and then we do this for everybody, because I think this brings a lot of clarity to the network, right? Be able to really see what's happening in your device. And like there are manufacturers that they have some sort of dashboard, but you need to be in the local network to
Yeah.
access. So then you have to go to the person who is hosting the device to be able to do this, or have to run some kind of like VPN and service on top of that. And
Yep.
we're trying just to make it easier for everyone.
Yeah, you guys are crushing. I'm going to push back a little bit on Joe P Network Bits. Joe, you usually got good stuff to say, but this idea that Georgia got from SynchroBit has always been a problem. No, he was not always a problem, dude. That guy was super helpful in the beginning of Helium. He was all over the Discord. He started this thing up, for whatever reason. All I've heard is kind of rumors about what happened to him, and he's obviously not making great business decisions now. But to say that guy was always bad, 100% no. He wasn't. He helped me. He helped a lot of people in the early days. Not doing a good job right now. I'll agree with you there. Really sucking. But I think this, it's this thing is like we're all entering in this thing together, and it's not like giant companies immediately jumped into Helium. It was a lot of single sole proprietor kind of folks jumping in and trying to build a business. And because it was so successful, they face things that normally it takes a much bigger business to deal with. And I think, Paul, I'm sure you saw that. That it's not an easy thing to handle an incredible amount of demand really quickly. And some people do it well, like Paul, and some people are sucking like other folks. So, yeah, I think we got to be careful.
I will
about
say
saying.
my
Go ahead.
my SynchroBit came back to life miraculously after like months of being dead, like a week ago. It just good, like nothing ever happened. So
Yeah.
I was about ready to replace it with like a rack or Bobcat or something. It's it knew I was thinking bad things about it.
Yeah, and I've seen all these guys get pissed at me about saying that Nebra is okay. I'm not saying that what they're doing is good. Like there's some really poor business practices out there, but I think at the same time there's a difference between kind of assigning blame and understanding what's going on. And if you understand what's going on, then it's easier to kind of figure out like why they're making the decisions they're making. And I'm not saying, I'm not standing up like, oh, it's a great idea to not communicate with your customers. No, that's fucking stupid. But yeah, trying to figure this stuff out. All right. 𝗚𝗿𝗶𝘀𝘁𝗹𝗲. Yeah, I think 𝗚𝗿𝗶𝘀𝘁, I've talked to you on Twitter. I think we've had long conversations, but it's hard to see, one handle to another. So I might have done that. Yeah. All right, Network Bits. Well, just be careful with being too mean here on the internets. Cool. I think that's it. That's a nice wrap and a place to finish up. We'll see what we got going on next week. Hopefully we got more new stuff pumping out of what has just happened with Helium House, but some pretty exciting stuff to come, and yeah, stay tuned. Thanks a ton for coming on. Is there any last stuff that you guys have before we sign off on this sucker?
I kind of love doing this show on Saturday. There's not like a million other things coming at me, so I get to like be in it a bit more. So we'll
Okay.
see. I liked it.
Maybe we should shift to Saturday. Maybe we'll do a poll. Is that working easier for you guys? I know we've gone to Friday to make it easier for Helium
Yeah,
Foundation, but
Friday is easier for me.
it is okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Daniel,
Saturday.
it's had Saturday afternoon. You're getting ready to party, dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually working, so it doesn't change much for me. But like, I was in this
Ooh.
pool like a few minutes ago, so it can.
Wow.
Not so bad. Not so bad.
That
Okay.
could be worse. Could be worse.
Right on. Cool. We'll give it some thought, and if we change it up, then I'll announce it. All right. Finish up with the usual. Hey, if you like this and you found this useful and inspiring, intelligent, whatever, smash thumbs up, like, subscribe, do all of the things. If you want to get the inside track, join the 𝗪𝗁𝗁 crew. I've got links to everybody on this call down in the description. So whether you go to Hotspotty or Helium Foundation or Disk 91, all the folks on here are experts and really strong contributors to the network, and you can learn a lot from all of them. So however you do it, my kind of sign off encouragement to you is just get in deeper. Even if you feel like you don't know what you're doing, is get in there and start learning now. You're still just at the beginning. This is still a radically exciting network to be a part of. So with that, I think we're going to finish up. Thanks, guys. Lates.
Yeah,
Bye.
good one.
Bye-bye.